Let's call the meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. on March 18th, 2021. All right, so let's go over the Zoom meeting rules briefly. All mics are muted and will only be unmuted by the chair during public comment windows. Members of the public may give public comment input through the chat function. So continuously throughout the night, either raise your hand in the chat function in the participants tab, or hit *9. That'll achieve the same effect. Thank you. We move to the next slide. All right, Councilman Deutsch, would you lead us in the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So let's proceed with roll call, Wendy.
Thank you. Councilmember Deutsch,
Here.
Councilmember Keisler,
Here.
Councilmember Lucchese,
Present.
Councilmember Arth. I do not see that he's joined us yet.
Could we check the phone?
Nothing on the phone either.
Okay, thank you.
And Mayor Bryan.
Present.
Thank you.
So tonight we have no special presentation. So that moves us on to item 4, general public comment. As said earlier, if you go to the participants tab and hit raise your hand button, you can do a public comment for any item not on the agenda. So anything generally of concern to the city that's either not on the agenda or on the consent agenda, which is the check registry for the last 2 weeks. So if anyone wish to make a public comment at this time, please raise your hand.
I do not see any hands. And again, if you have any issues like finding, you do have a chat.
Mr.
Really?
Rubino would like to-
I expected to be flooded tonight because everybody said they was gonna be at this meeting about fireworks and opening up, and there's no public comment.
We do have Mario Rubino. Mario, you should be able to. There you go.
I don't know what's going on with the *9 thing. It didn't work. Okay.
No worries. The
Okay,
chat box
is it time to start then?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, council, the rate hikes that are coming up are part of a 218 process. And in the past, we've gotten hit pretty hard. I think this task force is going to have some things to be asked for. And what I'm really talking about is when we put the ad out to the paper, we kind of call for citizens to get on that committee. And about 33% of the ratepayers are out of towners. And we have a certain percentage of ratepayers that are on South First and South Dunsmuir that are not in the city of Dunsmuir. And that didn't address them. So what I'm going to recommend is that you guys try and hold that open, and perhaps we can put a note on the bill for the 30% plus that are out of town. And then as well, that would hit South First and South Second, inviting them to participate in the process. It's kind of a sad thing, but I don't think the city can lose a 218 because of the way things are structured with our 218. It's kind of unfair for citizens of Dunsmuir, but it's more important, I think, to bring the people along in the process, keep it open and fair so that there's a lot less complaining and kibitzing on it. All right, well, thank you, council.
Thank you, Treasurer Rubino. I'd just like to let everyone know that Councilman Arth has joined us at 6:06.
Hi, Peter.
Councilor
Well,
Dye?
I was meeting with constituents at the pizza factory, but I'm ready.
Oh,
All right.
Present.
excellent. All right, let's
I have-
continue with our general public comment. Are there any other?
I have no other hands or requests in the chat.
Unbelievable.
All right. Seeing no further public comment, I will now close our general public comment for the evening. We'll move forward with council and staff reports. Do we have a member of the Siskiyou County Sheriff's Department here tonight?
So Ben's gonna join us late. Sam, his dog has taken sick and he needs to take him to the vet and have him put down sadly. So Ben is gonna be here a little late and fill in.
Okay, excellent. City Manager, would you like to continue with your report?
Sure. So I've been, immersed in a lot of things. One of them is the latest stimulus that's been passed by the feds. And wanted to let you know a little bit more. There were a few changes going through the Senate and finally being signed in the House, in that we were by population, the number hasn't changed. We're due to receive a little more than $294,000 directly to the city of Dunsmuir for use for any COVID-related losses. And I can get into a lot of the specifics of what would count. And I would say that it's very broad what we can, use the money for. Anything related to lost gas tax revenue, lost property tax revenue, in comparison to the last baseline year when we didn't have COVID.
Question?
Yes. Mhm.
The question I have is, can we also pass it on through the community development program to agencies in our community that were hit by it?
Be more specific if you could.
Well, let's talk about either the chamber or the resource center, the library, the pool, anything that normally would have a fundraising event that wasn't able to have one.
So, okay, that's a great question. So let me back up a little bit. One of the things that we can also look for recouping is lost revenue from any events that we didn't
Right.
hold last summer. So there's a whole list of things that I hadn't even thought of before that we can claim. And the money will come in two tranches, one up front within a month and the other about a year from now. And there are little kind of tiny things that don't affect us, like it can't be more than our allotted amount can't be more than 75% of our general fund. But in this case, that wouldn't hold because we're receiving it in two tranches, and even if we're receiving it all at once, it wouldn't matter. Yes, we can do all kinds of creative things. If we wanted to work with another city, for instance, we could form a joint powers authority and say that we're going to pool our funds and have an airtight agreement about how we agree we're going to use this money, and if someone defaults or needs to be audited, whose responsibility is what. But yes, you can transfer for some of these funds to a nonprofit entity, Dunsmuir Resource Center, of course, has been at the top of my mind. There are also programs that we need to be careful and be strategic about in terms of not drawing down the money that comes to us directly, but that we pull from other monies that are coming to the state that we qualify for. For instance, there's money that's going to be available through the state. And I believe that we just need to fill out a form and say, yes, we've suffered losses. And for, say, restaurants, that they can show in the year prior that this was the revenue they took in, and they compare it to the COVID year versus outside seating and reduced number of tables. They are able to be compensated for that lost revenue directly. That's one. There is a $10 billion statewide capital projects program, and a bunch of the money, of course, coming to California. And this money can be used for some capital projects like sewer and water. And it's not clear on, because I asked the question, can this be used for enhancing road revenue, or can it be used for replacing capital projects that have been forgone because we were dealing with the pandemic? And that's an argument that is, it would be hard for an auditor to unravel, and then I think the feds know that. So I think there are ways that we can use this money creatively. If not that I think we will, if we run out of reasons that we can draw down these funds. There are lots of ways to make sure that we use it all. Now we need to apply for it, and applying for it isn't meaning like we need to fill out a grant form. It's just saying, we're not a hard case. We want this money to come to our city, and it's a one-page form. So therefore, then we get the allocation downloaded to us. So that's it. There's still some clarification on a number of things, and we'll hear more later. Oh, and I guess one other thing is economic development. One of the things that we need to determine is if these funds can be used for future development activities relating to getting people back to work. In other words, whether that's job retraining or investing in things that would support getting people back to work. I think that's a very broad category and something that we should be dipping into. Anyway, that's my report.
Thank you, City Manager. Finance Director, are you on the call?
Yep, I'm here. No report. Thanks, Mayor Ryan.
Oh. All right. I think we're going to move into, are there any questions first of City Manager regarding his report? All right, seeing none. Thank you so much. That sounds like some very encouraging news. Let's move forward. Yes? Let's move forward into council member comments. Vice Mayor Keisler, would you like to begin?
Yes, I would. Thank you. We had I got my COVID shot today. I don't know if anybody's aware of this, but you can call the Siskiyou County Health Center, and they 841-2134. 841-2134. And they can schedule you or tell you how you can go about getting your shots. It was kind of like my honor today. I kind of led the brigade, and I took a lot of people from Dunsmuir, especially the people I work with up there, and we all got our shots, our first shots. So I encourage everybody to get the shot, research it, find out where you can get it. They're giving them away in numerous places right now, even in Mount Shasta. So please, everyone, get the shot. If all my guys that want to work for me, they were told they got to have the shot, so they got to be around us. That's just the way it's going to work. There's a project going on that we worked on this weekend at the Dunsmuir Elementary School, and they're creating a outside classroom. And it's been my honor to have been working on this project for quite a while with the supervision of Susan Keeler and Kathleen Shirley. I think it was Kathleen's idea to put this into fruition. But man, it sure was good to be out there with Rotary people this weekend and doing what we do and what we love best, was doing for our community, doing for our kids, and doing it together. So that was quite an awesome. I know that we're supposed to wait for council for committee reports, but I gotta jump the gun and say we had a really good meeting with the sheriffs. It's coming up in the committee reports. And I'm sorry, Sam, my heart goes out to you about your dog. Am I there?
Hello?
Hello? What happened?
I think you cut out for a good 15 seconds.
Where did Sam hear me say I'm sorry about his dog?
You were just beginning that.
Yeah, Sam, I am so sorry about your dog. My heart goes out to you, as I'm sure the rest of us do. Anyway, that's such a bummer. He's doing a good job for us, everybody. Just our new interim police chief. He replaced Ben, and he's doing a really good job. But we'll report on that later. Mr. Mayor will report on that later. That's all I got for now. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Kaiser. Councilman Arth.
Mr. Mayor, colleagues, members of the public, I really just have one comment building on tonight's agenda. One of the things that's not on tonight's agenda is the idea of a business district for downtown Dunsmuir, specifically the historic district. And I hope as we decide how to allocate the COVID dollars that Todd talked about, to me, if we're going to do economic development, we do have to focus on our downtown. And I liked the early work that Juliana and Todd did on either a voluntary business improvement district or a voluntary business improvement district. And what I'm wondering is, because there's already a T-bid, a tourist business improvement district in Siskiyou County, could we work with the staff of Discover Siskiyou, or whatever the outfit is called, to have them help us work through the two options and perhaps come up with a model that will work for us and effectively use the COVID dollars that are being given to us to help rebuild our downtown economy. So it's not necessarily an item for staff comments or council member comments or for the future agenda, but I do hope we get back to relentlessly looking to our future and the notion that mid-year we're going to have a visioning and a planning session that involves our community and starting to rebuild after a difficult year and a difficult period. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Arth. Councilwoman Lucchese.
Thank you. Just mainly been really busy with other work stuff right now, but I had a really good meeting with Keith and Carol, with Bruce, Councilmember Deutsch, and Todd about the airport and some upcoming opportunities for that. We're still putting together that airport committee to go over that with the pilots. And we'll hopefully by the next meeting have a report for the committee report section on that. Outside of that, just been finishing up some of the documentation to finalize the Prop 68 funding for the Children's Park. Feel like there's other things. There's some, along with the COVID dollars, one of the other things in there is they're talking about I don't know if Todd touched on this, they are talking about a separate pot of money for broadband fiber optic funding. So that's going to be a completely separate pot of money that they're talking about right now. They have not discussed how they're going to allocate that, if they're going to allocate that to cities or not. Right now, they're talking about allocating it just to the internet service providers, similar to some of the other granting systems they've done in the past, which would give us an ability to possibly reopen discussions with Vive, I believe is what Northland Cable has now turned into. So that opportunity may be coming up here in the next year or so. And then there's another pot of money separate from the larger allocation related to infrastructure dollars. Hopefully we can keep our eye on that. Other than that, I've just been working with Steve and Brian on a couple of different things and would like everybody to know that the Community Resource Center is getting a new website that will hopefully be a little bit easier to navigate and have a comprehensive list of the services that the community resource centers across Siskiyou County have for people, along with ways for people to donate so that we can start really pushing for donations for some of these really special social programs. Just kind of looking at my list here. Other than that, I've just been scoping out the grant situation coming up here for the next year to see if anything else is opening up that could fund some of the programming that we have going on. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilwoman Lucchese. Councilman Deutsch.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. First of all, I think I missed my second council meeting in 5.5 years last time around, and I had just gotten my second vaccine shot, and I was one of those people that got kicked in the butt by it. I can say to anybody else out there that's getting ready for your second, be prepared to take a day or two off. But the whole time I was not feeling good. I was also feeling good about the fact that I had my second shot. So I'm past 14 days, and I really encourage everyone around the city to take Councilmember Keisler's advice and sign up for as many different lists as you can. I know that there's a health center one that's going on here. The Dunsmuir Health Center has a list. I was on the VA list and also went through Mercy Medical Center. So however you can, get on the list and get there. As far as the rest, I would say that following up on Airport Committee Chair Lucchese's comments, I just wanted to highlight two things that came out of that. First of all, it was a really brilliant meeting. I just liked working with the people that were there, a lot of energy, a lot of knowledge about a lot of subjects. And a couple of things that came out. One is that in May, we're going to start the $3 million rebuild of a whole new runway. And the goal for that would be to finish it by the end of June so that we're ready for the fire season. The other thing I would point out too is the idea that we found out that the Forest Service is looking at the airport as one of their most important sites for fighting fires. Our airport is. In fact, they're even talking about the possibility of installing a couple of permanent heel pads just to be ready. So that's another sign that the airport is coming alive. Following up on what Juliana also mentioned, I want to, as the president of the board of directors of the Siskiyou Community Resource Collaborative, I was really excited to hear that both she and Pusher are stepping forward and working on getting this website together. And I really appreciate that. I think the citizens of Dunsmuir will have an opportunity to really connect up with the services that are available there. So thank you, Juliana, and thank you to Bryce and the rest of the team there. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you so much, Councilman Deutsch.
I'm feeling better.
Thank you.
And now on my front, I've mostly been quite busy working. The most exciting news will come in committee reports in a minute here, which I think we're ready to proceed to. Are there any committees that met besides the public safety?
Well, I believe that the short-term rental, didn't we meet?
We did, yes, indeed.
You want to report on that, Mr. Mayor?
You're the chair of the, I think you do an excellent job.
Okay, well, basically, my notes say they're kind of sporadic, but Rico's going to be coming back to us with it kind of rewrote as with some changes as far as the barbecues. There seems to be a big question as to what we are going to allow and what we are not going to allow with idiots. I mean outsiders coming and just starting barbecues. People from the city don't understand what leaves doth temperature, humidity, all that means. So it's going to fall on the homeowners, and it was up to Rico to put it into the writing and bring it back to us.
Yeah,
So
generally speaking, we're kind of going line by line through the proposed ordinance governing this, and just making adjustments that we feel are appropriate for Dunsmuir's safety and prosperity. Namely, the fire one came up, what we should not allow for these out-of-town visitors. But we'll be probably in, my hope is one meeting, but possibly 2 meetings, having something that'll be forwarded to the Planning Commission.
correct. It'll be 2 meetings. I have spoke with a few of the resort owners, and they've kind of put me in checkmate. They want to allow people staying at their places to, if they want to barbecue a dinner that night while they're staying there, they want to be allowed. But the resort owners want to make sure that council and everybody is aware that they'll provide the barbecue and take it away as soon as the dinner's done. So there's things to be discussed and looked at. But
Yeah, definitely. And if anyone would like to participate tonight, we have encouraged everyone to join the public comment section at the beginning of each meeting. It will be the second Tuesday of each month.
Mr. Mayor, while you're on that breath of encouragement, I would like to take the opportunity to encourage everybody out there in this city. Mario wrote a letter in the paper that was outstanding and on point. The people need to step up and be aware of what's going on. Join the committees, give us your advice, help us make the decisions that you all want us to make. Otherwise, you're surprised with the rate increases or no fires, and get involved. That would be my advice to everybody in this town, one way or another, whether it's volunteering to help at events or just getting on city council. But get involved. This is our town, and we are making decisions for us, and us needs to help us do it.
All right, thank you, Councilman Kessler. Aside from the public safety, were there other committees that met? All right, seeing none, I'd like to switch.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes?
We met with the sheriffs.
Yeah, no, public safety. I'm going to give that report in a moment, but I was going to welcome our own Lieutenant Wetstein on. I believe he's on the call now. If he would like to give a staff report.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. I'm standing in for Sam Kubowitz. Sounds like you guys have heard that his canine is took a turn for the worse, just got sick all of a sudden, and it looks like he's probably going to have to be put down. But I appreciate Big Dave's comments, and I'll pass those on to Sam. It's for canine handlers, their canine is not only their partner, but becomes a member of the family. And so it's an issue not only for Sam, but for Sam's family. So just want to again thank you for that word, Big Dave, and I'll let him know that you said it. But he,
please do,
for those reasons, could not be here tonight. But I did want to give the staff or the statistics for the month of February. We are doing really good when it comes to our hours. 66.6 of the fiscal year is complete, and 82% of the contracted hours has been completed. So we are way ahead of schedule here, and I hope the council just sees that this is evidence that the city of Dunsmuir is just continuing to be a big priority to us, because it really is. Regarding the February statistics, we had a total of 628 patrol hours in Dunsmuir, handled 181 calls for service, took 19 cases, had 25 traffic stops, wrote 14 citations, had 6 arrests, which brought 3 felony bookings and 3 misdemeanor bookings. There was a felony and a misdemeanor warrant arrest on Dunsmuir Avenue, a felony warrant arrest on Florence Loop, a felony arrest on Dunsmuir Avenue, and a misdemeanor arrest on Edith, and then 1 more misdemeanor arrest on Glebes. We did have 2 reported burglaries, both of which were determined to be unfounded. One was on Siskiyou Avenue. We had 5 thefts in Dunsmuir for February. There was a couple on Dunsmuir Avenue, Siskiyou Avenue, and then on Gleaves. No auto thefts. 1 assault and battery on Needham Avenue. We had 5 domestic disturbances, which were kind of all over town. 3 reported vandalisms, 1 on Needham, 1 on Shasta, and 1 on Castle. Did 18 school checks and had 9 disturbing the peace calls. Is there any question about the report?
No, I just can't write 66.6. That's 3 6s. So I'm just going to give you credit, say 67%.
Okay, it's 66.66. So if you want to give us 67.
Okay, that ain't what you said.
All right. Yeah, and I
Thank
didn't
you,
know.
Ben.
Yeah, I didn't know that if you guys wanted me to hang around for the discussion on the public safety meeting. Is that something you want me to hang around for?
Yeah, you're more than welcome to. We're about to
Okay.
discuss it right this second.
Okay.
So I guess I'll jump into that. In general, part of our agreement last time we renegotiated the sheriff's contract was to have a public safety committee that would communicate more regularly than just when the contract was up. So we meet quarterly. We didn't meet the prior quarter because we had a brand new sheriff, Jeremiah LaRue, a native of Dunsmuir. And we just recently, Councilman Keisler and myself are on the committee, met with Sheriff LaRue, Lieutenant Wetstein, and our new chief of police, Sergeant Kubowitz. It was a very productive meeting. The citizens of Dunsmuir should be happy to know that generally speaking, the sheriff shares our view for moving towards a more community-based and community-integrated form of policing. He loves the idea of getting back to more dedicated deputies to the city of Dunsmuir, when possible from the city of Dunsmuir. And he's expressed an interest to work towards that, both within the current MOU and be open to discussing things that might be changed. They are, and I think Sergeant Weston can speak to this, in need of new deputies. They're trying to hire, I believe it was 11 new people before they would have enough staffing to be able to fulfill that intention to move more assigned deputies down here. So I guess I would just say in light of that, if anyone knows anyone interested in a career, we do have an academy here in Siskiyou County. I believe in the course of a year to 2 years, you could develop into that and work for our sheriff's department potentially. So I'd encourage anyone who's younger, thinking of something to do, to look into that program. I think the most successful policemen often are the ones that are from this community, whether it's the county or Dunsmuir itself. But Big Dave or Lieutenant Westing?
Well, I just want to say that I was particularly impressed with Jeremiah's LaRue attitude. You know, it's like he's a homeboy and he knows what he's got to do, and he's got Dunsmuir at heart. And I think that to us is very beneficial. And they're bringing back the DARE program for the kids, and to me that was kind of an icebreaker. So they have my 100%, 110% support on that. I'm looking forward to working with them in the future.
Yeah, so the only thing I would add to that is that, well, a couple things. One, we actually have a reserve officer right now who is DARE trained. So we do have that resource that can be, brought down to Dunsmuir. In fact, I think that he has plans for that if he hasn't already started those. But yeah, we want to plug him into the school system for the DARE program too. So that is a resource that we have. Regarding the positions, we currently have a few vacancies right now, but we don't get the rest of our vacancies until after the start of the fiscal year. But there are active efforts to fill our vacancies, and the goals that we have for Dunsmuir and just having a more of a personalized police force are all dependent upon us getting up to our proper staffing levels. So we're working toward it, always working toward it, and there are steps that are being made. We've actually, since Sheriff LaRue has come into office, there's been some great strides made toward our staffing. So We're hoping this momentum stays up, and City of Dunsmuir will certainly benefit from it once we get up to proper staffing.
I'd like to hear that.
I'd also like to remind everyone, I think they'll share details with us as it comes up in the future, but they're working within their department, they've shared to really develop some new programs that are going to benefit the entire county and specifically Dunsmuir. Developing kind of specialized teams that can handle things and are used to it. And that expertise and that comfortability, approaching different things so that we have experts even within the police, the sheriff's office that can address certain issues as they arise is going to be very beneficial for the county and for our town.
Yeah, just a couple things out of that. So what it is that it's a team that we're putting together that is going to be it's going to be a full-time assignment, to where if there's any specific areas in the county that need to be targeted for certain types of enforcement, then they're just going to go at it. An example would be if we had, say, an outbreak of vehicle burglaries that were occurring in Dunsmuir, then this team would just be devoting themselves and all their resources to tackling that specific problem. So what this does, it frees, typically when patrol tries to handle that kind of a problem, that kind of an outbreak, we're limited because we have other calls that are coming in and other areas that we have to cover. But this team is going to be able to focus on those types of crime trends that are happening. So, and again, Dunsmuir is certainly going to be able to have access to that team when necessary. And it's just another tool that Sheriff LaRue has put together that is just going to be a great benefit to the city of Dunsmuir.
Thank you. Councilman Arth, I'm remiss, I see your hand up.
Well, before we leave committee reports, it does feel like we sort of left the repopulation of the committees unfinished. So it would be nice if we could get a recap for the remainder of this year as to what committees are functioning, their schedules, and who's on what committee. Specifically, I was designated as the city of Dunsmuir's representative to the IRWM committee, the integrated, integrated water resource management group. It's a very important aspect of financing our infrastructure updates. But typically I would go to the meetings, and Councilmember Lucchese was there on behalf of the city of Mount Shasta, and Blake would come for the city of Dunsmuir, and it just didn't feel like my value added was all that great. So I'm sort of seeking permission to remove myself from that assignment and devote my time to something that's of greater interest to me for the time I have left. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Arth. And Ben, we don't need to keep you here all night, or sorry, Lieutenant Weston. Thank you so much for joining the call and reporting on that. We're really excited about the happenings in the Siskiyou County Sheriff's Department. All right, I think we can move forward from committee reports to approval of the minutes for the March 4th meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Is there any discussion of the motion at hand? Seeing none, can we move into a roll call vote?
Big Dave, I say aye.
Councilman, do you want me to do roll call? Councilman Arth,
Yes, aye.
Councilman Deutsch.
Abstain, I wasn't there.
Okay, Councilman Keitzler,
Aye.
Councilman Lucchese,
Present, or yes, I, sorry.
and Mayor
It's
Bryant.
been a long week.
Aye. All right. All right. Let's move on to our next item. Consent agenda. We have the check registry from February 27th to March 12th, 2021. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda?
I
Move
move we
it.
adopt the consent agenda.
I
All right, I'll
second.
give all right, Deutsch motion, Arth second. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Arth,
Aye.
Councilmember Deutsch,
Aye.
Councilmember Keisler,
Aye.
Councilmember Lucchese,
Aye.
and Mayor Brian.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. We have no public hearings scheduled for this evening. We'll go on to old business, kind of the central theme of the evening. We have item A, solid waste contract discussion. City Manager Juhas, would you like to introduce this subject?
Sure. So where to begin? So the last solid waste agreement that we negotiated, full solid waste agreement was negotiated in 1991 with Clemens, and that contract ended in 1994. And I think with the short tenure of the city managers that have been here, I think the kind of the can has been kicked down the road in terms of negotiating a new full-on contract since '94, and we've signed a series of one-year extensions since that time. And what that has done, as it would for anybody that had this contract, in Clemens's case, it kind of puts them in a difficult position in terms of planning for the future, in terms of replacing their capital equipment, and just planning for, are they going to hire additional people? What is the future going to look like for them? And it's it's been kind of a tenuous situation. And so one of the other pieces of this is, since we haven't negotiated a full contract since 1994, we haven't gone out to see what kind of competition we have in a region, and have anybody that wants to respond to this RFP look at some of the things, some of the changes that have been mandated by the state of California, as well as some of the desired items like green waste pickup and some of the things that some folks would utilize, like bats, oils, and grease pickup, and recycling. There are a lot of details. So we ended up putting out an RFP at the end of 2020, and we gave a little bit, until I believe it was the end of January for responses. We received two back, one from the current waste hauler, Clemens, and one from John Smith, sanitation. And so our job over the past couple of weeks is to break down each of the responses to our RFP and take a look at a host of things. The first being, what are the basic services offered? If you look at Smith Sanitation and Clemens, there's a little difference in terms of Clemens is able right now with their equipment to handle 64-gallon cans and 96-gallon cans. John Smith is able to handle both of those, approximately the same size, as well as a 35-gallon can. You'll see in your handouts that a fee comparison with Smith for a 35-gallon can, it's $20.45 per month. It's $28 and change for a 64-gallon container, 96-gallon, $37 for Clemens. Again, they don't have right now the ability to handle a 35-gallon can, but their 65-gallon can is very close to the price of Smith's, $25.76. 96-gallon can at $38 and change, and Smith was at $37 and change. So from my analysis, their rates are washed. What happens is when we get to the point of the rubber meeting the road, how did each respondent to the RFP deal with the questions and the things that we wanted them to look at? And we asked for things to be considered, like what would a green waste day incorporation, or green waste pickup incorporated into our services look like? What would e-waste look like? What would how would you respond to recycling? What kind of bulk item pickup responses? What about the idea of a franchise fee to the city for partially for operating in the city, but also to compensate for staff time for doing the billing, and and vice versa. If we didn't have that franchise fee, what would it look like for these haulers to pick up billing on their own and coming directly from the company? So we went through both RFPs responses, and both are very capable haulers. The thing that we found was with the RFP from Smith Sanitation is that there were 15 pages of single space exceptions or deletions, sometimes to whole sections, or sometimes just objecting to a word, but in a lot of cases, a whole page, of things that we were looking for answers on. And even if that answer is, it's up for negotiation, and certainly anything should be up for negotiation as long as there's the money to pay for it. And that's something that would be worked out in negotiations post-awarding a contract. But staff found that going through Smith Sanitation's responses, there were certain things that were pretty key that we wanted answers on, or at least the assent that they'd be willing to negotiate on certain items, and they were just added as deletions. And there's a list in your packet of just a few examples of the stuff that we considered most important, and how Smith Sanitation dealt with them in terms of full deletions, and in comparison how Clemens Waste Removal responded. And in most cases, the things that were pretty major from staff's perspective that Smith wanted full deletions on, Clemens either didn't have an exception, or they clarified, or were asking for clarification on what exactly we were looking for. There, in one case, there was like an element in the RFP that asked for bins to be steam cleaned, trash cans to be steam cleaned once a year, replaced if they're damaged. And and they came back and said what the industry standard is, and that is replace containers when they're damaged, and not necessarily they need to look perfect, but they need to be sanitized and cleaned. So the bottom line is, when you kind of compare apples to apples, staff came up with the conclusion that, again, the rates are very similar for basic services. As an add-on, Smith Sanitation offers smaller size trash receptacles for residents, which is a bonus right now in comparison to Clemens. Smith calls out that they provide bear-proof containers as an added fee service. Clemens does not. However, Clemens has the ability to pick up bear-proof containers, but it's up to the residents, the residential owners, or commercial entities to purchase their own.
Question.
Go ahead.
I was told that Clemens did not have that capability. Is this something they've added?
To pick up bear-proof containers?
Yeah, Yeah, we were told that they didn't have that capability. Is that something new?
It was in the RFP, if that's how they responded. Maybe there's a change. That's something to be clarified.
Yeah, I
Um,
appreciate if you would on that. I've always wanted them to be able to do that, and I was hoping they would, but if they can now, that'll be a celebration.
Yeah,
And
because-
there is a representative from Clemens on the call today too. So after Todd is done with his review, you know, if the mayor feels so motivated, we could allow them to have a couple minutes to talk about their proposal. And also if there's someone from John Smith Sanitation, they could also discuss as well.
that'd be
We will open
respectful.
this up to public comment, is my intention.
Thank-
So everyone will have the
Okay,
opportunity.
thank you.
Okay, so, you know, again, with Smith, just the sheer number of deletions and not any kind of acknowledgement that certain items were up for negotiation was a little bit off-putting, and from staff's perspective, bordered on non-responsive. You know, there were, you know, pieces in here that about when, for example, if there was a missed pickup at a particular residence, and you know, the expectation would be that within a business day, that that material would be picked up again, and Smith's deletion was, you know, anytime within 7 days. Clemens is like, yep, we'd pick it up within a day. It just seems like a lot more responsive from Clemens in terms of being flexible. You know, this, it weighs into this sort of, but Clemens is already doing the job. And from what we've seen in Mount Shasta, when you actually then move to a new waste hauler, the transition period can be often rough and cost increase more than what you originally negotiated. Let's see if I'm missing anything. The you know, that's it. I mean, there's so much more to break down on this. When I was looking at you know, the RFP responses versus the RFP for a second time this weekend, I'm trying to summarize this. I got to about 15 pages to try to compare the two, and ended up having to pare it back to this. And this is about as truncated as I could make this. So I guess at this point, I'll leave it to our fine council people to talk this through or ask any questions. But you know, I appreciate both companies for taking the time to respond, and I think they're both very capable. It just my gut, based on the responses and other staff members that looked at this as well, as Clemens seemed to offer considerably more flexibility.
Thank you so much, City Manager Uaz. What I'd like to do now is proceed with clarifying questions for City Manager. So all the councilors, if there's questions regarding this report, regarding the 2 RFPs, we could address them now. We'll then proceed to public comment. Then we'll get to discussion of our thoughts and opinions and possibly action.
My only comment would be to echo what Bruce says about the bear trash cans, bear-proof trash can with the capability of picking them up. From what I was under the impression after talking with Diana, is that they would have to modify the trucks. So I, for one, am curious as to wait for public comment, because I know she's standing there biting at the bit, waiting to talk to us.
All right, well, thank you, Big Dave. Are there clarifying questions for our City Manager? I guess if there's no other clarifying questions, I'd just like to thank you, City Manager, for putting together such a thorough report with the comparison there for us to see. I know that took a lot of work, but it certainly helps us understand the situation. I will now open this item up to public comment. Same as before, if anyone would like to make a public comment, go to the Participants tab and hit the Raise Your Hand function, or dial *9 if you're on the phone, and each person will be allowed 3 minutes to make their public comment regarding this item.
right, we do have Diana.
Hello, it's Diana, excuse me, Diana with Clemens Waste. We have been dumping bear-proof cans for quite some time. The issue we had several years ago was we were concerned because we went automated. It was something the city wanted. So we went to automated trucks. Well, on those bear-proof cans, they have to be opened prior to the automated truck being able to dump them. And so that was just a concern if there were so many bear-proof cans, I'm sorry. But in the last couple of years, there have been some modifications that different companies have done that build those. There are now some modifications that we can even add to the cans that we have now that will dump and release the lid upon gravity for the automated side loader. So there are definitely some more options now that time has passed.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Diane. Thank you for being on the call. We really appreciate your guys' response. I see that Mario Rubino has requested to speak on this public comment. Mario?
Yes, council, when it comes to both the solid or the cleanup materials, the fire stuff, and also the recycling, the city of Dunsmuir does have some monies to create companies and businesses. And one of the things for sure is just the city of Dunsmuir doing something is very expensive. But it would be nice to see if we couldn't engage people to create businesses that would both benefit the city of Dunsmuir as well as be able to take advantage of grants, be able to take advantage of people out of our zip code for customers and people that are outside of our city zone for customers. It would be a more profitable business, and that business would again benefit the city of Dunsmuir. So it's easy to always think the first thing and the best thing would be for the city to do it, but I think we should also look at the possibilities of creating new businesses. Thank you, council.
All right, thank you so much, Treasurer Rubino. I do see we have the Baileys raising their hand.
Yes. Hello, this is Dwight Bailey, Castle Avenue, 5906. I would like to make a comment on the way that some people are trying to bear-proof their containers. I had the issue last year where after walking my dog, I saw something dangling from his mouth. What I found was a bolus that was wrapped around a 3-inch salmon lure that was wrapped in bacon. My dog swallowed it. Luckily, I was able to get it out. It was so heavily wrapped with bacon and other material that it did not lodge in its throat. But people are doing illegal things against the bears, and I think that the contractor needs to report that to the city, I guess, if illegal activity is taking place.
Oh my God.
Wow.
I was so fortunate in that had I not responded properly, it probably would have cost me several $100s to remove that from my dog's throat. Luckily, the barbs were so heavily caked with that as they wanted the bear to ingest it totally that my dog was not able to get it. I was able to get it a lot dislodged from his mouth, but it is a criminal activity.
Mr. Bailey, good job, sir. I'm sorry that happened to your dog.
Yes. Also, we should spread the word that clearly from this evening, we know that bear-proof containers are available for pickup in the community. Thank you so much, Mr. Bailey. Is there any other further public comment this evening regarding our solid waste RFP discussion?
I do not see anyone in the chat or in the participants.
All right. Thank you so much. I'll now close public comment for this evening. Unless, real quick before we do, is there any representative from John Smith Sanitation here tonight? Okay.
I like that. That was good.
I just
Mr.
wanted
Mayor.
to give them the opportunity if they were here.
That was good, sir.
All right. Let's move forward to council discussion. I know there's a lot to discuss here. why don't we just begin by each person saying their comments on their thoughts. So let's begin with Councilwoman Lucchese.
Thank you. I thought they were really good proposals, and I think, I did not have the opportunity to work with John Smith Sanitation up in Mount Shasta. That switched over, a little bit earlier in my career with them. But I do have to say, working with Summit Disposal, and I'm not promoting them at all, I'm just saying, what has been really good about the city of Mount Shasta's relationship with them is the flexibility. And so I think, having the flexibility to speak with our solid waste provider and be able to improve services, offer new services, and have them as a partner is, I think, a much more invaluable service than anything else that you can have. Because obviously the solid waste laws in California change pretty dramatically. And I think to be able to meet those plus the needs of the community, we really do need to pick someone who's going to be a very responsive and flexible partner. So I'm very much in favor of staying with Clemens Waste Removal. And I really hope moving forward, we can definitely be partners with each other. And they do provide, invaluable jobs for people here in the community. And, they've just been a really good partner so far in the past. And so that's the way that I'm leaning at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Lucchese. Councilman Deutsch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The one question I have is, what is the process from here? Assuming that we go with the recommendation, and I will say that I also feel the same way that Councilwoman Lucchese just mentioned. I feel comfortable continuing with Clemens, but what is the process going forward to take it from tonight into an actual signed contract?
All right, thank you, Councilman Deutsch. I think we'll address that here shortly, but let's
In the motion.
Yeah, within the motion, but I think that that is the next question, and I appreciate that. Councilman Arth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members. I am first appreciative to the staff, particularly Todd, for a well-written memo, and sort of in line with water and sewer infrastructure. The first sentence of the memo says the last time the city of Dunsmuir negotiated a solid waste contract was 1991. And that's because it was in a period where the city of Dunsmuir was not a forward-looking entity. They were just trying to hang on. So we've been 20 years on automatic pilot. And as Juliana sort of indicated, much has changed in those 20 years. So I'm hoping that this is the beginning of an iterative process. We had, thanks to Mr. Bailey, but we had one member of the public testify on this topic, but I know over the years, there's a significant amount of interest in green waste disposal. There's an interest in recycling. Obviously, there's an interest in making our community fire safe. So again, my hope is we try to engage citizens in taking some interest in helping us make these decisions, just the way Mario's letter in yesterday's paper suggested for utilities. But we need to have a partner and we need to be forward-looking. The state sooner or later is going to require us to partner with them as well, especially around fire safety issues. So I'm fine with the staff's recommendation for tonight, but I'm hoping this is really a beginning rather than an ending. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Arth. Councilman Keisler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On my screen, if I look down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dots, on the 5th dot, Smith Sanitation included 15 pages of a single space deletion of proposed and/or required items listed in the RFP staff found these deletions as borderline non-responsive. So in other words, there's 15 pages of questions that they just did not want to answer. That kind of sticks in my craw. I have watched Diana and her family get out of her truck and pick up my trash, my neighbor's trash. I drive around town, I see her do it everywhere. They are our trash people. They keep our town clean. I appreciate Mr. Bailey's, as Mr. Arth, I appreciate Mr. Bailey's comment. And Diana posted to us privately and there in the notes that she's never seen anything like that. That's an atrocity. And she would let us know if she ever sees that. They do have a green waste and they do have a recycling process. They help the city with the green waste, the trash. We do the, once or twice a year, we do cleanups, and I'm sure we're going to be doing more in the future. They have contributed to everything that this city has ever asked of them. They've contributed to railroad days, all the way down to the kids' backpack program at the school where our children, your children, eat healthy on the weekends because of their contributions. So, Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion, if I might.
I think before we make a motion, we should address Councilman Deutsch's question. However, I'd like to say that having reviewed these two responses, I do kind of concur with my fellow colleagues here on the City Council that there's just a number of items that John Smith Sanitation could have had flexibility with without too much hassle on their part, from my perception, but they expressed no interest in working with us. A big one that stuck with me was the way things currently work and the way the proposal works with Clemens. If someone forgets to put their can out, you just have to call, and as soon as they can, and within the contract, they're supposed to come pick it up within 1 day of that call, free of charge. John Smith says you got to wait till next week, essentially, the way I'm interpreting it, because they say you got to wait 7 days from that time. So I think
that to me
like
is a health hazard.
Well, it's just an example of wanting to work with us versus not. The other thing that's of major concern to me is these citywide cleanup days. And I think that Clemens has worked well with us on that and that they're going to continue, but I'm in favor of going with staff's recommendation as well. City Manager Juhas, would you like to address Councilman Deutsch's question as to how we proceed from here in terms of the roadmap to this fairly historic event?
But Mr. Mayor, it's in the wording in the recommendation motion. It's in the wording.
Yes, it is. And we can certainly proceed with that motion. But I think that a council member has raised the question, where do we go from here? What does the process look like? And I think explanation would help everyone.
So my recommendation is to form an ad hoc committee the idea behind this was eventually, essentially to award to the most responsive respondent to the RFP, and that's when the hard work begins. Now, staff could negotiate with them directly, but in my opinion, we need to form an ad hoc committee and have some members of the public be part of that, because when we add new services, we add new fees, and we need to be cognizant of what that means to to residents, and make sure that folks are comfortable absorbing it.
Will this be a Prop 218?
Yes.
Yes,
Definitely.
definitely. Yep.
I know that the ad hoc is not on the agenda for today, but I love trash and I would love to talk about trash. And it has nothing to do, I am not related to the Lucchese's who were in charge of trash in New York City, but I love talking about trash. I am not related in any sort of way, but I do love talking about garbage. So,
Well, shouldn't Peter be the other person, since he's as concerned about green waste and recycling as anybody?
I would
If
kind of
I
have
could-
to
That makes sense.
If I could come off of IRWM, I'd love to go on to trash.
we can deal with trash together. I think that's okay.
I think that'd be great.
All right. I guess without further ado, then
Please allow me.
proceed, Big Dave.
Mr. Mayor, fellow council members, I move that we declare that Clemens Waste Removal LLC continue to provide service to the city of Dunsmuir. I also recommend that we commence negotiations on a contract with Clemens, either through an ad hoc committee or through another qualified body. Side note, they've been doing it for 30 years.
Well, actually, could we just form the ad hoc here, or would it need to be on the agenda?
Actually, I think we
we
just
should-
did. I think we just
Well,
did.
yeah, let's put together the ad hoc so that we at least know, if we're gonna have citizens on it, how we're gonna form the charge
Well,
of that.
I nominate Juliana and Peter to.
And
Well,
two
and I do have,
citizens.
and I do have to say it's not technically on the agenda. So that's
Yeah,
the other big thing is we should probably agendize it.
Okay, no worries.
All right.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, Wendy, could you move on to an historic roll call vote?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Brian. Councilmember Arth,
Big eye.
Councilmember Deutsch,
Aye.
Councilmember Keisler,
Big I.
Councilmember Lucchese,
Aye.
and Mayor Brian.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
Congratulations, Diana. Welcome to the party again.
All right, now let's move forward into new business. Let's begin with item A, events. Can we have them this summer? I think this was just in response to a public comment from a meeting or two ago where the chair of the Railroad Days Committee was asking whether they should begin planning or not. And we decided it was time to address this in our discussions. Big Dave, I know you've been a proponent of this discussion. Would you like to begin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I kind of think that everybody, Siskiyou County is doing everything that they can. And like I got my shot today, shots are available. This is March. We're talking about April, May, June. I think by June that we should allow the city to open back up. Railroad Days would be nice. Brewfest would be nice. The steampunk, all of the things would be nice. If we have to keep some kind of COVID restrictions, I'm sure we could probably do that. But I think in a couple months from now, the way things seem to be going, it's my opinion, I think everybody would be cool. I have my concerns, like you see on the news, all the president and everybody's like, well, don't go too soon. But I think that Siskiyou County really is doing an outstanding effort to make sure that everybody's vaccinated. Now, there are people that don't want to go along with the herd, the herd vaccine thing. I'm not getting in. I had a guy tonight tell me, oh, they're going to put a tracking device in me. And I told him, get out of my house. You got to go. So, but I think that if we do it responsibly, that we could open up. And it's going to mean so much. Our kids are going nuts from being locked up. People are going nuts from being locked up. I saw a friend of mine in a Rotary that I haven't seen this lady in months. And we had masks on, but we gave each other a hug. And I cannot begin to tell you, I almost dropped to my knees and started crying. It's just so nice. And everybody's longing for that. And I think that the community, the businesses, the tourists, I've had a lot of people call me, are we going to have the soapbox? Are we going to have the soapbox? So that's what we put it up there. And I know we had the one steampunk and it was an outstanding event. And we haven't had it again. And I'm sure it's going to bring, it's a great venue for Dunsmuir, along with Jim Powell's Music in the Mountain and the Brewfest. And just to put a note out there, all the money that is incurred from the Brewfest goes to our own kids' scholarships. And I think that's imperative that everybody knows what the whole thing is about. So I'm hoping that we can all agree that we can come to some kind of resolution that we can open up the city for events. And just curious to see what you guys think.
So really quick, just some background information that I've learned about in the past couple weeks. So City of Mount Shasta organizations are trying to put together the 4th of July event. And they
Yes.
were well,
Well,
hold your pause.
oh my God.
One of the issues is that the health department has come out and said they will not authorize food vendors for any special events until the county has entered the green tier. So we have that issue. So that's something to keep in mind as we move forward is some of these events that have historically had food and beverage service will not be able to do that until the green light is given for the green tier.
But
So
you're talking,
just to
Miss Giuliano, 4 months away.
it's still, I'm just letting you know right now that they basically have told the 4th of July committee up in Mount Shasta that they cannot have food vendors at this point. And they will
Okay.
not even entertain reviewing applications for special events until we enter into the green tier. So just to keep that on everyone's radar for planning and to let you know that that is the health department's stance for Siskiyou County at this point that they've let us know. So that means the Brewfest may not be possible with that in place. And then
Thank
we'd
you.
have to be, yeah.
Sorry, thank you, Councilman. Councilman
Go ahead.
Deutsch, do you have any
Yeah.
thoughts to share
I
on this
had
topic?
Yeah, thank you. I had a question. Is it possible that we could reschedule, say, the railroad days until later in the summer in order to give us more time to get to the green? That's my question in general, just to throw out there.
Okay, Councilman Arth.
Well, this is an issue where this is maybe the city's business in as much as we can help fund the chamber, we can help support events, but I don't know the state of the Dunsmuir Chamber of Commerce. Whether they're on this call, obviously they should be the laboring oar on events for this summer. We're almost out of March and into April. So even without Juliana's report, I think it's exceedingly iffy that we will have any summer events because we don't have organizing committees, we don't have sponsors, we don't have budgets. I'm trying to salvage the Alexander Dunsmuir Award and the Citizen of the Year Award and the Business of the Year Award, working with Tim Holt, who chairs that committee. And all we can agree on is bumping it back into the fall. But I'm not sure what the role of the city of Dunsmuir is in events. Can we have them this summer? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Arth. I think a lot of my thoughts on this subject have been along that line where I'm thinking, what is it that the city approves? It's typically, we approve the event and we approve the use of the road, city property, etc. So we do have a role in green lighting, whether they can or can't. But, planning how they would, say, in COVID function and what county permits that requires for what amenities is kind of up to the event organizers. That is not the city and not city staff directly. So I'm leaning more towards the thought that, we can at any time process our version of the application for an event. If it were for any time, I think it's premature to say we will have an event in June, but I would encourage the organizations to plan for it, because if we don't plan for it and we're able to, we won't be able to pull it off if we give ourselves only, 2-3 weeks to make that happen.
So can I add my 2 cents to this?
Certainly, City Manager.
So I feel like there's a lot of reason to be optimistic. I mean, basically, the county has said anybody that wants a shot now is eligible. If anybody wants a copy of what they sent out as a press release and how to actually call and get that shot is great. I think, well, I have a lot of optimism for things reopening. I want to be careful and I want to be hesitant. Our counterparts in Weed, their city manager and every member of their staff is all down with COVID at the moment. And they have 3 members that are potentially looking at being hospitalized. The city manager has been down for a month and is extremely sick. When we end up getting vaccinated, I think we need to still adhere to protocols in terms of mask wearing and making sure that we're paying some attention to social distancing, just because that we're finding out that we have now 18 variants that are present in the United States, including the South African variant, which if you catch it, it is like, if you have had the vaccination, it is so much different that it's as if you didn't have a vaccination, and you will get as sick as you would if you hadn't had it. Anyway, I'm really hopeful for the summer. I think we should budget for these events, and I just think we need to see what our vaccination compliance rates are about a month from now.
All right, thank you so much for your input. I'm going to open this up to public comment, because I think people might have their perspectives on that. And I see that Tim Holt has his hand raised.
It ain't Tim.
Sandra.
Good evening.
Good evening. This is the better half of the Sandra Hood, 6235 Hill Street, Chairman of Railroad Days Committee. Considering this is the middle of March, we would really have to scramble to put together Railroad Days, but we could make the effort. Though I appreciate the information from Councilman Casey about environmental health, that they're not going to prove any food vendors right now. That would, a good portion of our vendors are food vendors that come to Railroad Days. We would have to maybe really get our restaurants to step up and offer something if environmental health wouldn't approve outdoor food vendors. It's possible we could do it. I know Siskiyou Golden Fair is going to limit their attendance. With our layout, we can't limit attendance. We could maybe offer everybody masks. So we would like to try it, but we'll leave it up. We'll leave the final word to you guys, to the council.
All right. Thank you so much, Sandra. We appreciate your input on that. I guess I have one follow-up question. Would it be possible to relocate it to a different weekend in the summer, or would that present some logistical difficulties?
It could, because depending on what's going to happen in the summer, it might be that June events can't happen, but July events can happen. It would also depend on, of course, there's always entertainers. It would depend on the volunteer committee members, if they're going to be available. It's something we can discuss at our next meeting. and say, okay, this is the date. We wouldn't want, if the 4th of July happens and if Weed Carnivale happens, we've already years ago experienced 4th of July, Railroad Days, and Weed Carnivale, and it's not a pretty sight. If we have Brewfest in August, where do we put Railroad Days? If we have,
How about if we had a Railroad Days Brewfest and a music thing in August?
do everything in August, huh?
Do it all over a 3-day weekend. I mean, let's flood the town, bring them all in one time. We're doing the Corona. I don't know, just an idea.
Well, you got, but remember that Siskiyou Golden Fair is in August. So.
All right. Thank you so much, Sandra. We appreciate the public comment. I think going from here, what I'm hearing is there's no clear consensus for our ability.
We do have another public comment.
Oh, yes. Mr. Bailey.
Bailey's.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
I would like to comment. Last year on Railroad Day, Sandra, we submitted applications for the T-shirt or the logo, and we didn't hear any response back. I'm a reseller. I have a resale license, of which anything I sell in the city of Dunsmuir returns money back to the city of Dunsmuir. McLeod has already opened up. I have my application for McLeod. 1 week before that was normally our yard sale. We did not have one last year. The fact is that during yard sale last year, I sold about $750, of which taxes were paid to the city of Dunsmuir. It's a matter of if you do not have these events, the money is going somewhere else, whether it be to a county that opens up. Railroad Days, to me, when I came back, I've always enjoyed Railroad Days for 25, 30 years. The fact is that Railroad Days has been an odd event on the timing of that, because like Sandra pointed out, there are other venues. But the fact is people need to plan on this and need to go in and get that. And our revenues will go somewhere else if they're not here. I live in Dunsmuir, and I would prefer my revenues come to Dunsmuir.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Appreciate the public comment. Is there any further public comment on this item?
I do not have any other chats or hand raises.
All right. Seeing that, I'll now close the public comment on events. Moving forward, it sounds as if there's a consensus among council that we're not really in a position to know what we'd say about a June event, but we're hopeful that it could possibly be a yes.
Should we make a motion to table this for, say, a month?
I think that might be the most realistic motion. I don't know if some of the events, some of the organizations, they should be beginning their work if they're intending to try for that. But we're very supportive of it if at all possible.
I think maybe.
At least in a month's time, we'd have a little.
Sorry, Councilman Lucchese?
Oh, I was going to say, I agree. I think maybe revisiting this in another 4 weeks to see how well people get out and get vaccinated. I actually have been really impressed with how many people in Siskiyou County have been getting through that process. And I believe Rite Aid in Mount Shasta is going to be doing the Johnson & Johnson shots as well, which is only a one-time thing, which is going to speed up vaccination rates as well. Yeah, I think either visit this in 1 month, or if we do happen to get to the green tier within 4 weeks, which I don't think we will, but I think it's just an option to have.
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we table this for 1 month.
Really quick, Councilmember Arth had his hand up.
Well, I have no problem with the motion. I'm happy to second it. But I do think, being somewhat close to the business community, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. We need to promote ourselves with the start of the fishing season. So as difficult it was for a time, Big Dave, maybe we want to bring back the big fish contest. Mossbury Falls is going to happen when it happens, but I do hope we work with our county partner to promote that Dunsmuir is a great place to come and get a meal or enjoy a beer or enjoy the museum. We
Or
need
catch
to
a fish.
promote the city no matter what we do over the
Yes, sir.
summer, events or not.
Thank you, Peter. I agree.
Thank you, Councilman Art. There's a motion and a second. Let's move into a roll call vote if there's no further discussion.
Councilmember Arth,
Aye.
Councilmember Deutsch,
Aye.
Councilmember Keisler,
Aye.
Councilmember Lucchese,
Aye.
and Mayor Bryan.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Let's move forward into new business item B, mid-year budget adjustment. Thank you for the extensive report. Is this something that Chair of the Finance Committee or Finance Director would like to introduce?
I'll take it and Blake can back me up if I need it. So I'll give it a shot. Thank you. So the Finance Committee did a mid-year budget review for the 2020-2021 fiscal year, just to take a look at our revenues and expenditures. And we have a couple of recommendations that were approved unanimously from the committee. So mainly we're doing fairly well on the revenue side of things, that we feel pretty confident to move forward with that. As you'll see on page 17 of your packets, Blake was really great and broke down, some of the things that are happening with revenues and expenditures. One of the major topics of concern that was brought up in the finance meetings, we had a couple of them, was that we are currently overspending in the professional services category for the planning department and our buildings and grounds. But the planning department was kind of the bigger one. We can't really change the expenditures for the buildings and grounds. As you can see, it was COVID related, which some of that may be able to be filled in with the upcoming expenditures. But the main thing is we, so there's a couple of different pots of money related to planning services. So some of the planning departments, which is Rico Tinsman and Rico's available today, part of Rico's fees are reimbursed basically by a development application. And so that is no impact to the city's general fund. And then we also have grant dollars that we've got for specific projects related to the general plan and housing that Rico's been working on. And those are not coming from the general fund. What we did happen to have in this last half fiscal year was we every time we work on city ordinances, those come out of the general fund. And so a big majority of our code enforcement ordinances, we had a lot of ordinances that were not codified correctly. There were things in the municipal code that just weren't brought up to state mandates and state standards. And so a lot of that had to get done at the first half of this fiscal year. And so that's what put us over budget in the planning special services. It wasn't really anything to do with special expenditure projects or anything like that. It wasn't really going to the airport or anything. It was really just, these are some housekeeping items in our municipal code that really needed to get tackled. And we appreciated Rico's work to do that, but it was something we did have to rectify within the budget. And so we did recommend expanding the expected budget for the rest of the year by, I believe, about $35,000. Is that correct, Blake?
Yep, you got it.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a couple weeks and I'm like brushing that off. So that's kind of the bad news that we appeared to have for the mid-year budget review for the general fund expenditures, but it's something that we can easily rectify. Going to the revenue side of things, one of the things that we did account for now and are recommending to put into the revenue side is we did get $50,000 of revenue for the COVID expenditures. We did actually have a higher sales and transaction use tax revenue, which is really good. So we just beefed up that number for expected revenues for the end of the year. And you can see the calculation there that Blake did. We did, I believe, increase the property tax line budget. Is that correct? Am I remembering that one correctly, Blake?
Well, we didn't focus too much on the revenues because that's not quite as necessary. It's really focused on the expenditure side.
Well, I
Yeah.
don't see a, going down to your recommended amendments, I don't see a sales tax or transaction use tax or a, increase, even though it says it's the $60,000 increase. Is that because you don't think it's necessary to change the budget on the excessive revenue?
Yes, that's correct. That's my opinion, but we can for sure raise it if you all want to. That's not a problem at all.
But going back to it really quick, the only other thing that we talked about was the cannabis tax revenues. We don't expect to get the 55,000 that we originally had in the budget. We've amended it down to 5,000, which is around what we've already taken in. And because of COVID and one of the facilities changing locations, we don't expect to really get much out of that revenue area for the rest of the fiscal year. Now that can definitely change for the next fiscal year. And when we start reviewing the next year's budget review, which we plan to do, I believe, in April, May, that is something we can take into account. But we wanted to at least take that revenue source and bring that down to a more realistic level based on what we've seen. So that's what we, go ahead.
Yeah, the question I had was, in general, though, when are we going to be looking at community development, and what does the budget look like in terms of what we can expect for community development?
So the community development grants are open now. So if anyone is on the call and is looking to do that, we have those available on the city's website, and the application period closes at the end of this month. So the Finance Committee will meet back up in April and we'll start our review of the community promotions funding. And so we did not talk about an overall budget for that yet, because we want to take a look at how many requests we're getting in and the extensive request of the amounts that we're going to be getting. So it's really hard to say what we're going to get at this point until we start seeing those applications come in.
Have we advertised that enough? Because that's kind of taken me by surprise. I would, in terms of both the resource center and the chamber, is it possible to push that back another month and get more information out to the folks?
I know that we have contacted previous applicants for the community promotions, and then I've let a couple of people know as well that have said that they're interested in some programming, but I think Blake can also bring up any other steps that we've taken to advertise.
Miss Juliana?
I'm just gonna, sorry, go ahead.
Page 17 at the top there, revenues, general fund, the last thing is cannabis revenues are below budget and city did not receive one payment of tax?
It did
What?
receive one, it did receive one payment of tax.
And that-
The bullet line says cannabis revenues are below budget, and the city did receive one payment of tax, and that's what we took into account for the page 18.
They received one payment, and that payment was how much? Roughly
Blake has
5,000?
No, it was
Yeah.
more like 3,000.
3,000.
Right.
Yeah. And then Blake, going back to Councilmember Deutsch's question, could you talk about the other advertisement that we put out there?
Yes, we have put it onto the city's news page, which does push to Facebook and Twitter.
Okay, and
Thank
I
you.
guess we can each follow up from there as necessary to make sure they're aware. I'll do that.
Well,
Thank you.
well, and I'd also like to point out that this enters the third year since we tried to standardize the process with these dates in mind. And I know that there's always different circumstances each spring, but the last year took place in the same time frame as it looks like we're proceeding now. And I think we outlined that process on our website, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so that covers the general fund recommendations that the Finance Committee had. Pretty much the rest of the budget was on track for what we originally set up for the projected revenues and projected expenditures. So we didn't see a need to offer any other recommendations for budget adjustments at this time. So going to the sewer fund, we did increase the professional services expenditure, and that's related to grant funding for the sewer fund. And then we did also increase the expenditures for the maintenance section, just because we've had some unexpected issues with the sewer fund itself, or the sewer system itself. We've just had a lot of repairs this year. I know for my house, at least on Holly Avenue, there was a couple of days here, almost nearly a week, where there was a significant number of repairs. And so we're just amending that budget to take that into account. So we're expecting an increase in expenditures in the sewer account this for the rest of the fiscal year to be about $65,000, or at least budget for that amount. For the water fund, professional services, we did slightly increase the professional services section by 2,500. And then we did amend in the USDA grant water meters. So the water meters is not coming out of the water fund except for from that grant. So it's not anything that we didn't account for already. So there's not much to be fearful of in terms of that section of the budget. And then the airport fund, the recommendations are we do have a grant coming in for $65,000, and then the grant expenditures, we did amend the budget to allow for the expenditure of that grant up to $45,000 at this fiscal year. So the $20,000 that is not attributed to that grant fund would be rolled over into the next fiscal year. So everything that we've talked about in terms of our recommendations is just for the end of this fiscal year on June 30th. So we have not started to talk about the fiscal budget for next year. And that's all I have, unless Blake, you want to add anything else?
That was absolutely beautiful. That was perfect.
Thank you.
If I could add one thing to this, just that the community development block grant funds that we have had in the pipeline for months, including, our standard allocation and CV1. We've had that just the state is just backlogged with all the requests. It's frankly, it's a little bothersome that this is supposed to be providing relief for COVID, and we can't, we still don't have it, and I'm making calls on that. Anyway, it's due in, and I'm hoping that we get some positive news soon, but it's frustrating.
And just to clarify, that's the Community Development Block Grant Program from the state and feds. It is not the Community Promotions Fund. They are two separate things. I just wanted to clarify that so people aren't confused.
Thank you. All right, there are questions?
Are we going to hear from the public first, or?
Oh, I think we're just at clarifying questions now. If no one else has any, I do have a number of questions.
Well, I have a question and a comment. The comment is, I think, as far as the sewer fund, this is at best confusing because it says revenues are in line with the budget, and then it says revenues are not in line with the budget. That is, as I was departing the finance committee, Pace Engineering was expressing a good amount of alarm with our 200 phantom accounts and what the loss of the revenue from those phantom accounts does to the state of the sewer fund. So we sort of seem to be sending the message everything is okay with our sewer fund. And to me, we're trying to prepare our sewer customers for what's likely to be perhaps a substantial rate increase in the near future. My question for the airport fund is there any likelihood that the $90,000 owed to the general fund, that we will receive any of that before the fiscal year is done? Thank you.
Good questions.
Blake, you want to take the first part of that, and I'll take the airport piece?
Sure. So the sewer fund, so we are in line with the budget, but the budget is woefully, the budget predicted a deficit.
We already
So
made an
I know
adjustment.
it is a little confusing. I can understand the confusion, but there's still the sewer fund is in dire circumstances, but we knew that in the budget.
Can I make a point on that? Because I think there's a misunderstanding. When we had the rate study meeting, we asked Pace specifically what type of effect could this phantom set of 200 or so accounts cause us. And it's been said that this is some dire situation. The numbers that we were given by Pace were it might be something like a $5 increase spread out over 5 years. So $1 extra each year. So it's not like we have a crisis there. There's certainly things we want to do. And the way we're planning on doing it is by wrapping both the water and the sewer into a regular 5-year cycle. And by doing that at the same time, we'll address that discrepancy, but it's not a crisis and it's not going to cause everyone to think the sky is falling. So I just want to make that clear going forward, because that was the impression that was given.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman Deutsch. I believe the crisis was mostly referring to the state of the reserves for the sewer fund, which was just supposed to get low before it starts to rise again. But to Councilman R's specific question, Blake, we already downgraded the revenue expectation to the budget. Is that the reason why we are in line with our budget?
Well, this may be getting too specific, but last year, I knew what the actuals were, and I knew what the percentage increase in the rates were. It went from $45 to $50 for our sewer revenue or sewer per unit charge. So I knew our actual revenue. I knew the percentage increase, so I did that. So the budget revenues is the budgeted item that we budgeted.
Oh my God.
Okay,
which
this
is
all
in line, but that budgeted revenue is is the expenditures are over the revenues.
Okay, understood. And I believe that was about the time we began digging into why the sewer fund wasn't meeting its rate study.
Exactly. Right.
Okay. So that, Councilman Arth, does that clarify?
Well, I think the answer to your question, Mr. Mayor, is no, it hasn't been adjusted down.
It was in the very first calculation. Blake did a good job and used actual data to extrapolate his expectations. And the data is accurate. It's just not accurate compared to what we'd hoped to get based on the rate study. And that was about the time that we first noticed and began working on the sewer discrepancy.
Well, we just accepted the independent auditor's report, and with all due respect, Charlie was rather concerned about the situation.
Oh yeah, it's very concerning. The sewer fund is of concern.
Yeah, but just to reset everything, we're talking about budget adjustments. So what Charlie had in mind here, and what the Finance Committee is doing a great job with, is keeping us adjusting these meaningful adjustments as we get new data, analyze it along the way on something like this is a biannual, but he recommended a quarterly basis because we have these 2-year budgets now. So I do have a number of other questions. I'm sure they'll be easily enough explained. One, if we go to with professional services, I understand that the difference that the city's paying for $5,000, there's a lot that Rico's doing to help us clean up our ordinances, et cetera. But under fire department mutual aid, I see that on the revenue side, we bring in an extra $25,000 from sending the fire crew out. And then on the expenditure side, which typically follows it, we have, we have a $35,000 expense. So I'm just curious about that 10,000, because I thought those were pretty lockstep in with one another, where yes, we bring in more revenue, but we pay the guys who volunteer for us when they go out on calls, we reimburse them.
What page you on, Mr. Mayor? What
Page 18.
Yeah, so page 18, the fourth or the second line underneath CARES Act in revenues, it says fire department mutual aid is the amended amount is 85,000. Then in the expenditures, so the next grouping of boxes there, fire department mutual aid is amended at 75,000. And that's simply a best guesstimate of, well, I know that there are revenues. We have, I think we're at like 60,000 right now in revenues. And I think it's like 50,000 in expenditures, give or take. So I'm predicting there'll be some more coming in, because I think Chief's told me that he's got a couple fire payments coming in.
Okay.
So it's my best guesstimate as to where that might land.
Just so that we set the record straight, so that everybody knows, we're not making money here. We're just footing the bill. Is that correct?
Right. We're not making any money. So we're getting reimbursed for our trucks, our fire truck going out and being used on an outside entity fire.
Yeah,
So
that's
either
called,
CAL FIRE or a
they're
the
footing the
other one.
bill. It didn't cost
Forestry.
us as Dunsmuirians nothing.
Exactly.
It's just that our boys are doing the work.
Exactly.
All right.
All right, and then I had a question regarding the how to use the grant funds for the airport fund, and this, amending it to say we're bringing in $65,000. I was under the impression we had a $20,000 kind of administrative part of the grant that was due to the airport and could be spent on anything, and that the rest of it was a portion would be spent on applying for the grant, outside services, et cetera. Could someone help break down for me why we're getting the 65,000, which grant it comes from, and what the, I guess on the expenditure side, what that 45,000 represents in terms of the costs?
Yeah, it is related to the runway, to the runway replacement. And it is like what you said, the administrative costs. So applying for it, our management of it, public works crews going out to make sure that the actual, laying of the pavement is in line with, really the actual taking samples and all the concrete stuff, that's actually going to be through the engineering firm. But there is still a requirement that city staff does do some investigations and, make sure things are going along. So it's a lot of those administrative expenses.
Okay, but then the 20,000, is that yet to be determined by council how that'll be budgeted and spent? Or is this committing those funds essentially in the 45 would be kind of my question. I see that there is 20 in the difference between the two. Is that where that's going to hang out till we make a decision on it?
Yeah, it'll eventually hang out in the fund balance, which will then hopefully negate the due to, due from, or not negate, but it'll lessen the due to, due from.
Yeah, we allocated that $20,000. Basically, it is for lost revenue to your airport due to COVID, and we were able to figure a way how to spin that, for the sake of pulling that $20,000 toward, paying down that debt. Now, the other piece of this is with the new version of stimulus that's coming in, and being very broad in terms of lost revenue or not just lost revenue, but expenses related to COVID. We're hoping, because there's airport specific stuff that has not been defined, at least to my satisfaction yet, how much that would be, that we're also hoping to apply to the airport to pay down some more of that debt.
Question?
Yes.
Todd, would you take a moment to talk about the shavings and how that may very well end up being able to delete that or pay off that fund?
I believe we discussed that in the past. That there's that
we got it.
possibility. I think that's understood. If we could focus on the particular budget amendment here, and I'm fairly well satisfied. I just wanted to make sure that $25,000 or the $20,000 wasn't included in those expenses. But I see that it's there. It'll be in the fund balance until we use it. And then my only other question is, Blake, I'd just love to know and let everyone attending this meeting know what the plan is with the 2-year budget, with the budget this year, because clearly it's going to be a different process than it's been in the past.
Yeah, good question. I think Juliana and Big Dave and the rest of the finance committee will talk about that at more length and potentially do a more in-depth budget amendment time, or because we don't have to necessarily reinvent the budget, but I definitely would like to make some tweaks.
Well, we will have to add on to another budget. I think that's what we're holding ourselves to, where we'll budget out a year further, hopefully by July 1st.
To me, it's a rolling budget that we will need to take a look at and reconcile with all of what we have come out on a positive basis and where we have come out negative over the past year of a pandemic. And then we need to figure in any stimulus that can fill those holes in as long as we have an actual on what we can pull into that budget, via the feds. So, and that should move very quickly. But yes, the idea is that we're rolling this on to the next 2-year cycle.
All right, thank you so much. I
Yeah.
really appreciate that.
Have we had public
Councilmember-
comment?
Just really
Council-
quick, Council. I was just gonna say, I was gonna add really quick, the schedule right now for Finance Committee is to, like I said, in April, do the community promotions funding and offer a recommendation to council, and then immediately roll into, if at the same time, if we're able to do that, but I want to give the community promotions enough time. But then immediately roll into a review of the full next fiscal year budget so that we're able to get ready for June, July for council members so that we can have that next year fiscal budget confirmed for recommendations and then move on to the second year. So we want to make sure that each year is given its due process. But Councilmember Arth has his hand up.
Well, I'm just hoping that the Finance Committee, as we roll into the next 2-year budget, continues to deal with depreciation expense and working with the Public Works Department and the city manager so that when our important equipment becomes dangerous or has to be replaced, we don't say, gee, we didn't know that was coming.
Absolutely.
That's part of the proactive budget that I think the mayor and I are trying to do as a reform. And the more we can engage our hardworking staff in your part of this conversation as well, how are the dump trucks doing? How are the scrapers doing? That'll be a good thing for the community.
Absolutely.
All right, those are all my questions. Thank you so much. Are there any other questions of Councilwoman Lucchese and Blake?
I'm prepared to make a motion.
I believe I'm going to open this up to public comment first, if you don't mind, Big Dave.
All right, I thought we did, but okay.
Not for this one. I'll
All
now
right.
open this up to public comment, the mid-year budget adjustment. If anyone would like to make a
Yeah.
comment.
The
Raise
city
your hand.
treasurer wanted to make a comment.
All right, Treasurer Rubino.
Oh, did we lose him?
We only had the top of his head last time. Maybe he's all the way gone now.
All right, Treasurer Rubino.
You should be able to unmute yourself at this point.
Mario.
All right, well, let me open it up further. If there's anyone else who'd like to make
I
a
wonder
comment.
how it gets muted. I don't touch it and it gets muted.
All
I
right,
am
you go.
so sorry. Council, I want to commend Mrs. Lucchese for an incredible synopsis. I want to recommend Mr. Arth tune into a financial meeting where he can understand a little bit more in depth the sewer rate situation and what was trying to be explained. I would love to go into it. This is not the time and place, and this is way past my bedtime. I want to recommend the amendments to that the financial committee put forward of our city manager's budget, and I hope we get a positive vote on it. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer Rubino. Are there any other people wishing to make public comment on our mid-year budget adjustment? I do not see any, so I will now close the public comment on this item. Let's move forward with discussion of the adjustments. Seeing no discussion, would anyone like to entertain a motion?
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like the motion to amend the budget according to the amended page.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion of the motion at hand?
Well, is this an action item or just an advisory thing?
It's an action
It's
item.
an action.
Action.
Okay,
Basically the finance committee is recommending approval of these budget adjustments, and we're doing
Very
them
good.
as a package.
thank you.
Roll call.
Councilmember Arth,
Aye,
Councilmember Deutsch,
Aye.
Councilmember Keisler,
Aye.
Councilmember Lucchese,
Aye.
and Mayor Bryan.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
All right, let's move forward into item new business C, CDBG coronavirus rounds 2 and 3 grant application and resolution 2021 dash, I don't know what it is, but city manager, would you like to introduce this topic?
Sorry, he was muted. I had to go find him.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, let's let Blake handle this item.
All right, so thank you. Real quick, so starting off, in my staff report, you see the little asterisk notes. I did receive an email that did extend this deadline to May 7th. So if people are loopy right now, we could potentially table this, but I have a feeling it could go quickly. So I just wanted to throw that out there. If anybody wants to stop me right now, we can move on.
I think we can proceed given the topic.
Perfect. Okay. So essentially, I'll try and go quick. So essentially, this is rounds 2, 3 for coronavirus funding. There's that total of $219,000-ish. And essentially what I'm asking for and what you guys should consider is placing or adding essentially how we want to spend that $219,000. Okay, so there's a couple different options. We can take that 219 and place it within our round 1 funding, which, to remind everybody, the round 1 funding is an economic development to for-profit businesses. And right now that's around $120-ish thousand. So we could add a full 219,000 to that potentially. Okay, so that takes care of the second resolution in your packet. Or actually, no, sorry, that was the first resolution in your packet. Okay, then there are a couple different options for the resolution that deals with rounds 2, 3. And I'll move to page.
I think it's 23 that you're looking for, Blake.
Yeah, there you go. Good job. Thanks, Wendy. Yeah, so page 23, the list at the very bottom, list activities and amounts. So right now in this current resolution, there it says public service dash food bank, not to exceed 219, and then public service dash subsistence payments, which that is mainly for utilities. So that can help our citizens pay for their utility bills. Now, there are up to 4 of those that we can do. So if you guys want, we could do public service dash library roof. Like that. But, so in any case, so what we want to decide, what you guys can discuss is essentially those options. What we want to include on page 23 in the activities and amounts, which can be, again, what you see there on the screen or on page 23. We could also add public service library roof on there. And
Like,
then this,
I gotta ask a question. I
Okay.
can have 4, I got 4 projects and they are each for 219, or do they all total 219?
Yeah, excellent question. So that's what I was just about to get into. So that's where we have the not to exceed 219 wording in there, so that gives us, that gives you all the flexibility to say, I want $218,000 to go to project 1 and $1,000 to go to project 2, or any variation thereof. So this gives us gives you all the flexibility to have that wording in there of not to exceed.
But I there's no way I can get 4 projects totaling 28, like in 800. No, it's a capped at 219.
Right. It's as
Okay,
if you've gotten
that's-
this pot of gold from the leprechauns of $219,000.
Well, I
and it's
thought that
now
pot of
how do you
gold was
want-
4 projects each for 219,000. So it was my bad.
Good-
So this
yeah,
is
good
a whole,
question.
okay, thank you, sorry.
Right. So how do we, so the essential question is, how do you all want to spend $219,000?
Do we
And
need to make that decision today?
no, you don't need to place any dollar figures, because that's why we're going to do not to exceed 219,000.
It's
Well,
almost $250,000.
I think some infrastructure improvement, if that's possible. I don't know how we word that vaguely enough. If it needs to be library roof, or if it could be
Sidewalks.
So yeah, so that these are all great. And what I'm thinking is we can definitely place these things in there, but getting back to now some specifics, Mount Shasta will be the what do they call it?
lead applicant.
Jurisdiction. Lead applicant. There you go. Good job.
Yep.
So Mount Shasta will be the lead applicant, and if we add all these programs in, that is separate program requirements. So they're essentially different programs, which does get a bit tricky. So that's my only caveat and worry in us adding a bunch of different projects. But at this point, I think we should just throw in as many as we want.
Well, as far as the parameters of what we can add, is there something about replacing failing city buildings?
Yeah, so
Like
that is
roof
public
fixing, et
service,
cetera?
right? Public service, infrastructure, or public service
Improvement to community facilities.
There you go. I move we add that one.
Yes. So moved.
And then would this be where we would also include the option to do direct payments to for-profit businesses?
So that would be, sounds like you would want to add, go to the other resolution and approve that resolution as well. So 2021-06.
We can approve both resolutions?
Definitely. Yep.
That's
Okay.
what I recommend, that there's no way that the replacement of the roof of the library, whether it's repair or full replacement, is going to cover that full amount. And so I would recommend that we pass the second resolution related to propping up Stephen Bryant and the Dunsmuir Community Resource Center because of the vital, service he provides in terms of propping up our most our at-risk residents.
One thing I'd like to include in the infrastructure one, that's community buildings, is I think we could talk with the chief about possible improvements to the fire building, talk with the sheriff. We have some very old buildings that would be wise to look at, but I'm definitely in favor of all of the uses so far stated.
Yeah, the fire station is a gray area. There are a list of public buildings that are a yes and a no. And like if we had a repair that we needed to do to City Hall, we couldn't do it with these funds. But it's not clear to me yet on whether or not we can do repairs to the fire station, but it's on our radar.
But the
Thank you.
library is definitely on there, though.
Yes, that qualifies. Yes.
All right, excellent. So how would this motion work the best? Perhaps Councilwoman O'Casey, you could guide us through the most efficient way to move this forward.
So
I mean, there's a lot
Oh
of.
my God, she boxed.
I mean, there's a lot of ways we can move forward with this. I mean, Blake kind of covered everything. Is basically just have a general list of things we'd like to do, and like I said, keeping it as broad as possible is the best option. So I wouldn't necessarily get down to the nitty gritty.
Well, I
So
was just
maybe
wondering
the
if you had
first
a,
motion,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe the first motion would be to add onto resolution 2021-02 on page 20, or under the list activities and amounts, add public service dash facilities, colon, not to exceed $219,150.
Hey, Blake.
Yeah.
Actually, no, here, we'll just do it this way. Okay, I got this.
I know you want to bring it up on the screen.
I am going to bring up a Word document and type this up so that everybody can see. Give me 1 second. My computer updated today, so everything is being super slow.
I mean, so then one motion needs to be motion to approve 2021-06, a resolution approving an amendment, yada, 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 by title only.
Title only.
Yeah, because that one's ready to go. And that, so again, just to clarify while Juliana is picking that up, is that 2021-06 will add up to $219,000 to our round one allotment. And again, our round one allotment is to benefit for-profit businesses.
Okay, can you start from the beginning, Blake? I've got everything pulled up. So I've got motion to amend resolution 2021-202.
21.
Two.
Related to-
Motion to amend that to include under the
Public facilities.
list activities and amounts, public service dash facilities. Let's call it that.
By title only.
Well, we're not
No,
quite.
you don't have to say by title only. And also for future reference, you do not have to say title only for resolutions. You
Oh,
only have
really?
to read the title. Yeah, the
Ah,
more you know.
you're so good.
The more you know. Yes.
colon, not to exceed $ 219, comma 150. Perfect.
Okay. So I think in terms of amending, you should amend, I mean, if you want to be like super proper Rosenberg's rules of order, you should take each amendment for each resolution at one time. So if there's no other amendments to 2021-02, we should make this amendment now.
I would add that as part, so you think of the phrasing of it, what I want to get to, and maybe you're a little crisper than I am at this moment, is that part of these funds to go to a nonprofit entity supporting the needs
Resource
of
center.
income residents of Dunsmuir.
Could you repeat that last part, Todd? You were really quiet.
Sorry. So as part of these funds to be a transfer to a nonprofit that supports.
Oops, sorry, we lost you.
He said the citizens of Dunsmuir.
That supports
Oh,
the citizens of Dunsmuir.
That's what he said. Todd, where you go?
Oh, let me see if we accidentally got him muted. Nope, he's still there. So yeah, Todd, your microphone is not working or your internet service is down. If it is the microphone, maybe if you want to put in the chat.
And so I think just real quick to reiterate some stuff. So the list activities and amounts, we've already got public service food bank. So that could be like the community resource center, public service subsistence payments, which that's for utilities, utility bills. This is specifically not for rental assistance. So that's what's kind of holding everything up right now. is there is going to be, and this is kind of a side note, if I can take a couple minutes for this. Side note is that there is going to be a rental assistance program at some point in the future.
It's already in place. I got a email from Ed Valenzuela that said that it's already in play. I can send you that link, and it would be good to get the word out to the people on that one.
Well, send that thing to me.
Well, just to let you know, I do believe that that part of the program is now in place, so I'll send that information out to everybody.
So
Thank you.
just to clarify on that piece, it's about to be in place. It's part of the STEM package. And I think probably Ed was relaying what is, is basically has already been approved by the feds. Now it's just this 30-day waiting period before we're able to access that money.
Great.
All right, that sounds great. Returning to this resolution, is there any other thing that would be recommended to be added at this point to keep it broad? I think we're working on a, Todd, do I have you right where we were trying to include nonprofits as well as for-profits that do good in our town?
So what I would say in the next bullet point is to say support for a nonprofit entity providing services to low-income members of our community.
Could we make it potentially even broader? In other words, to make it so that any nonprofit that is within the city of Dunsmuir could also apply for it, similar to a for-profit business in the first resolution.
Yeah, sure.
I think there's a number of nonprofits that might benefit from this that aren't specifically geared towards low-income households, but do provide overall economic activity.
Well, so what
the only caveat with that is that when we get down to what we have available after when we get an estimate for the library's roof, what we have left, we're going to have to make a decision on what our priorities are in terms of if we've got several nonprofits looking for funds, where do we park that money?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Could we remove the low income side and just keep it broad? If people are okay with that?
does it has to be allocated to low income though.
Absolutely. Yep.
It does.
Yeah, I mean the CDBG program is for low moderate income households. So there is an income qualification category.
For both the businesses. Okay.
It's one of those key words.
If you want to be specific, 0 to 60 MFI.
Okay.
Oh, you were asking for that earlier today, Todd. Let me look that up.
I've got it.
Oh, you did get it. Is it City of Dunsmuir? Medium family income or
I've got state related. What I'm trying to parse out, and I haven't been able to find, because obviously comparing Sacramento's low income to San Francisco's low income to Dunsmuir's low income, I haven't been able to find that particular breakdown. And even if it isn't Dunsmuir related, if there's a Siskiyou County version of low income, and I have not been able to find it.
Oh, I definitely know where we are, and there is one for Dunsmuir specifically, and I can find it for you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, we've got it. Median household income for the city of Dunsmuir is $33,017 approximately.
Okay. Do we know what the qualification is for poverty level for Siskiyou?
Actually, Rico?
I've tried him, and we talked about it. We both came up with the state number, but there seems, again, you're probably looking at a mean look, and so that's going to throw out all, obviously, for the statistic nerd, it's going to throw out all outliers, but it's still, we're talking about what is low income for us, and we are an outlier, so we'd be thrown out of that calculation.
I know Todd knows a lot more about this. He's been looking at a lot more than I have. But for if you look at a CDBG program, you should be, my understanding was that you use the state income limits, which are established for which they established for all the metropolitan areas and non-metropolitan counties.
All right, well, that makes sense to me, and I'm sure we'll get full clarification as the program moves forward. With the low income, I was mostly just wondering if something like the chamber or, a nonprofit within town that doesn't specifically have its income or mission being low income, whether they could potentially receive funds the way a business would. But I see that wouldn't fit.
Yes. So really quick, I did amend the bullet point to say support for nonprofit activities, providing services to low-income households. So instead of entities, maybe
I like
Yeah,
that.
I think that could work.
that might be a little bit more broad.
Flexible, yeah.
And if you want to be a little more wiggly, you could put low mod income.
Low mod.
Mhm.
That's very
Zero to-
geeky.
0 to 60% MFI, if you want to get specific.
All right. Well, I think that gives us a lot to work with between the four that we have.
Yeah.
Have we had public comment yet?
We have not. If there's no further questions, I can open this up for public comment. If anyone would like to make a public comment on this item, simply raise your hand in the participants tab.
I do not have any takers and I don't have anybody in the chat.
All right, seeing none, I will now close public comment.
Wait, just to clarify, Wendy, I think we already approved 2020, Jesus, I can't talk. 2021-02. I think we already approved that resolution. Is that correct? At a previous meeting? Anyone?
No, I don't have this motion, but this motion approved. Yeah.
Okay. Motion to.
Yeah, you
So I
jumped
believe
right
you
over.
can. Okay. Motion to.
Wendy and I just looked at that.
Yeah. Okay. I think you can do them in one if it's unanimous for the amendment. So if everybody is okay with the amendment, we can do it in one action. But if someone's going to be against the amendment, we'd have to do them as two separate action items.
Is there any people objecting? All right, let's proceed with them together.
Okay, cool. I'll make the motion to amend resolution 2021. I don't know why that number is bothering me today. -02 CDBG CV round 2-3 list of activities to include public services / facilities, support for nonprofit activities providing services to low and moderate income households. All activity totals shall not exceed $219,150 and also approve the overall resolution as amended.
I second that.
There's a motion and a second. Let's move into a vote.
Councilmember Art,
Aye.
Councilmember Deutsch,
Aye.
Councilmember Keisler,
Aye.
Councilmember Lucchese,
Aye.
Mayor Bryan.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
All right, so then we need to, do we need to approve the other resolution as well?
If you guys so choose.
As
yes.
amended?
No, well, 2021-06 now is simply allowing the up to $219,150 to be used into round one.
Okay.
And that resolution is fine the way it is. I mean, unless you do want to amend it for any reason.
Do we make a motion or do we go to public comment on this too?
I went to public comment on the entire item.
All right, then I make a motion to approve resolution 2021-06. ED round 1.
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion at hand? Seeing none, let's move into a roll call vote.
Councilmember Arth,
Aye.
Councilmember Deutsch,
Aye.
Councilmember Keisler,
Aye.
Councilmember Lucchese,
Aye.
and Mayor Bryan.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
All right, let's move forward into our last item. Item D, General Plan Annual Progress Report. I believe that's our city planner, Rico Tinsman.
Yeah, and I'm going to try to let everyone go to bed really soon, or at least go get some dinner. This, quite simply, is your general plan annual progress report. And I know probably Peter remembers these from the past, and Big Dave. Just looking at the past, it doesn't look like it looks like maybe one was submitted to the state in 2018 most recently. I prepared one last year. But unfortunately, it was during the whole COVID transition with COVID, and then with the transition of city staff when Julie Iskra was leaving. So it never got on your agenda. I apologize. It did get submitted to the state. Now I'm going to tell you, these general plan annual progress reports are required by state law to be prepared annually, of course, the general plan annual reports. And so they're supposed to be prepared and presented to the legislative body of each local agency, each city and county, and then to once submitted to the legislative body, they need to go to the Department of Housing and Community Development, as well as the Office of Planning and Research prior on or before April 1st of each year. So I don't want to bore you with this long report. You've got it in you've got it in the staff report. Basically what it is the state, in addition to requiring that you adopt a general plan, they require that you have this sort of report on the progress in implementing the general plan, as well as meeting what has largely become the purpose of the general plan annual progress report, to report on your housing production, all the other things that the state requires you to report on, because that's what they're tracking. So the report, for the purposes of a general plan annual progress report, it's really, you've got your written report, and you've got, which varies depending upon jurisdiction, and then you've got these forms that are very specific, prescribed by HCD. Now, those forms that are prescribed by HCD are specific to your housing element general plan and your housing element report, your progress on that. And they're somewhat technical. There's a whole bunch of explanations, instructions on how to fill them out, and frankly, they're largely empty at this point because we didn't have a great deal of building activity in the last year. So I've tried to summarize the building activity inside of the your written staff report, and really only provide you with one of the forms that HCD makes us fill out, which is sort of your assessment of your housing element programs and how you're doing on implementing them. And I'll tell you, this is a unfunded government mandate, right? So a lot of people for years just kick these things down the road. They didn't want to do it. State finally put in some tougher language to hit cities that failed to submit the reports to the state as required annually. But the penalties are kind of, they're not, they basically just make you fill out the report and submit it within 60 days. The bigger thing, the bigger issue, the reasons to do these is you would not have gotten, the city would not have gotten its SB2 planning grant had your former planner not prepared the general plan annual progress report in 2018 and submit it to the state. Well, they may have actually allowed us to submit them retroactively, but that's how important they're becoming. It's one of the things that they tied $160,000 to this report. So for that reason, I'm pretty keen on getting them to you every year. And in the future, I will tell you, once you've seen these, it's going to look very similar every year with a little bit of a few nuanced changes based on new reporting requirements. In the future, I will likely recommend that these go on the consent. That said, really the benefit of these is they give the legislative body, you, the opportunity to reflect upon your policy and programs in your general plan without having to read your whole general plan every year. But they do provide you just some perspective. So you get to kind of step back and go, all right, well, oh geez, that's that's an interesting program. I don't know what they were thinking back then. And then, or you go, well, we're kind of taking a new direction. We don't think that's a good idea anymore. And it sort of formulates your vision for the future. So this is, basically, a whole series of things that tells you what's the status of your general plan and whatnot. And I'm going to summarize it very quickly here for you. Your general plan was largely adopted in 2005 with your housing element adopted separately. General plans generally are good for 10 to 20 years. There hasn't been a whole lot that's changed in our community that requires a comprehensive general plan update, other than there's nothing in our community per se, but there have been significant changes in state general plan guidelines. There's a whole bunch of new stuff that's in your attachment A to your general plan annual progress report that sort of outlines specific changes to general plan law, so that you know the things that we're actually going to be working on. And that's the big thing here. Yes, the general plan is getting to the point where in 2025, it should be time for a new one. And in 2022, we have to update our housing element. The lovely news is we have money for that. We have a SB2 planning grant that's going to provide us with a housing element update. And we have a LEAP grant that's going to provide us with a general plan update to update all of the remaining elements. So that is largely it. We had very little development. Our general plan is, I take pride in it. I think it's a wonderful document. You had someone working on the general plan back in 2005 that lived in this community that was very biased and spent probably too much of their employer's time and money working on it. But I think it's a pretty good plan. We just need to update it consistent with state law, and we will be going through that process over the next few years. That's it. With that, I will say, because I want to see if I can say this, because I am tired, you have a recommended motion on page 36 of your agenda packet, and I apologize. I noticed that in putting these things into agenda packets, some of my formatting is getting stripped. It looks like it's still understandable, but I do apologize for that. I'll try to correct that in the future. And this is what I want to say. I believe the resolution is 2021-05. All right, I'm waking up. So there it is. You have a recommended motion. And with that, any questions for me?
I have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Rico, in terms of looking at future housing development, how do we work that into the housing element and also into our efforts to increase our housing supply?
Yeah, so that's going to be done. So the two principal efforts for that, yes, those do get captured in our general plan and in our, sort of the policies are set forth in the housing element. But the, your density and intensity gets put in your land use element. So when we update that, we'll be addressing that. But also one of the things that we've done with this SB2 grant is to get a money for a comprehensive zoning code update. One, just cleaning it up because it's gotten kind of messy, and there have been some mistakes that have been made over the years and some inconsistencies and whatnot. But what we're really trying to do is we're also trying to, at one point, the council had tried to allow single family dwellings by right in the C2. So, we're doing this new mixed use zoning district, but in addition to allowing single family residences as intended by the council, we're trying to provide greater densities as well, so that we encourage higher densities sort of along Dunsmuir Avenue, sort of our central core. So hopefully to provide some incentives for redevelopment of properties at higher residential densities. I think that's going to, hopefully accomplish some of it. To be honest, we don't really have much developable land at this point, other than some area in northeast Dunsmuir, which I'll be honest with you, it's inside city limits. I've looked at that. I actually live right next door to it. I've walked it. It's not going to give us many units. It's not a high density area. There's some significant constraints there. I've seen endangered species, things that would cause problems on the property. But I think frankly, for the current economics and what I see being the biggest benefit to us having additional housing and not in the form of new single family dwellings. But I think the state's accessory dwelling unit laws and laws for junior accessory dwelling units are going to, when people catch on, and they are catching on to them. And in fact, I'm working on an accessory dwelling unit ordinance through our comprehensive zoning code update. That, or I've completed it, just waiting to share it with you. Those are the types of things that I really think is going to give us new housing opportunities. It's really hard to go up in a canyon, particularly, we're not Mill Valley. People do not, property values aren't such that you build on cliffs here reasonably. There's people would just go up to somewhere flat to build where land is cheaper and more easily developed. So we're really stretched for having space. We either go up or we find ways to have infill. So we're looking at all sorts of strategies for that.
Thank you very much.
Hey Rico, I think you mentioned this a while ago. I think we were having some kind of housing discussion. This is very way pre-COVID, which is, by the way, how we're going to tell time from now on, is pre and post COVID. But we were also talking about, I believe that the city of Dunsmuir has a fairly high kind of underutilized housing unit percentage. Isn't it like something around like 30% of the housing units that could be available are not due to, structural damage or just not upkeep?
Oh, I don't know that that's, I'd have to look at the, I don't know the last time we had a housing condition survey. I'll have to look at that. I know we've obviously got a lot of old housing in the community. Also, there's been a lot of, when I've looked at in the past, I believe there's also been quite a bit of rehabilitation of our structures, and really some of our worst ones have been, we all know there's still some out there, but some of the worst ones have been removed from our community. I think that what I think we're talking about is that it was just a very high vacancy rate. Dunsmuir has historically had a 30+% vacancy rate, which are largely our second homeowners.
Okay. Yeah, I just remember our conversation, but that was like one of the strategies that we could look back on and maybe see if there's a rehabilitation program that we could do, and that might help with some housing numbers.
It may. I don't know. I honestly do not have a good idea at the moment on the percentage of units that are in need of rehabilitation.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Are there any other clarifying questions receiving this report? All right, thank you so much, City Planner. I'll open this up to public comment. So again, if anyone would like to make a public comment at this time, go to the participants tab and hit the raise your hand button, or hit *9 if you're dialing in.
I got nobody.
We are pretty boring, aren't we?
Seeing none, I'll now close the public comment section. Let's proceed with discussion of this item.
Well, I moved that we had.
Yeah, I was going to say, just go ahead and move it. These are very straightforward. You got to do it type things.
I move that we adopt resolution 2021-05, accepting that the 2020 general plan annual progress report and approving transmit of the report to the Governor's Office of Planning and Research and the California Department of Housing and Community Development. Damn.
Second.
All right, there's a motion. And a
second that. I thought you'd want to second that.
Any discussion at the motion on hand? Seeing none, Wendy, could we move into a roll call vote?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Arth.
Aye.
Councilmember Deutsch.
Yes.
Councilmember Keisler.
Aye.
Councilmember Lucchese.
Aye.
And Mayor Bryan.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Rico.
Thank you, Rika.
Thank you, Rico. All right, that moves us out of new business onto future agenda items. If anyone briefly has anything they'd like to bring up, right now for consideration. We can also email to myself or city manager ideas for future agenda items as well, if there isn't time to elaborate on them tonight.
I think we've already talked about next meeting doing the solid waste ad hoc.
Yes.
And in 4 weeks, bringing it back for the
Special events.
for special events. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm eating. I'm tired. It's that time.
Oh, this is nothing. The
No, I
Shasta
know.
Planning Commission went till 9:30 on Tuesday.
Hey, I've had a city council meeting last meet at 12:35 a.m.
Okay.
We
well,
can do that again if you want.
No.
The longest
Okay.
I've experienced, I think, was a little after 10. That was
And
impressive.
no dog park poop thing. No, never again. I make a motion and we adjourn, everybody.
I
I'll second.
Beat you to it.
All right,
I'll
all
give it
those
to
in
Bruce.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Rico, for all your work.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Good
All
night.
right. Good night.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thank you, Wendy.
Good job, Wendy.
Thanks, Bruce. Good night.